So, Richard, thanks very much for finding time to speak to us on Keep Cardiff Live. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. One of my favourite cities in the world. So
Oh, great.
Oh,
How
fantastic.
lovely is that? That's brilliant. Thank you. Because
don't tell people in Swansea, though, yeah?
we've got a very warm relationship with people in Swansea, as I'm sure you know.
Yes, indeed. I remember the other two places that never really worked for us is Portsmouth when we play there, because the Southampton used my song "The Saints Are Coming" to come out to. And as soon as we start playing it, the good people of Portsmouth turn their back.
Yeah, we get that. We're both big football fans. We're both Cardiff City fans. But there we are. I'm guessing you were Celtic
ultras.
No.
They're pretty scary.
No.
Yeah. We just love our football. We don't do all that stuff.
I support a German team called St. Pauli in the second division.
Yeah, I saw the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. So they're my team. It's more because they're a punk rock team and their fans are punks, and they also use the Saints Are Coming. Obviously, St. Pauli.
All right. Okay. So are you kind of...
Yeah, we were counting the other day that the Skids songs that are used by football teams, Into the Valley, Dunfermline and Charlton Athletic, Saints are Southampton and St. Pauli, and the New Orleans Saints in America, the American football team. And in Dusseldorf, Fortuna Dusseldorf use a song called Hurry On Boys. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
We did a live internet gig the other night.
Yeah.
And stupidly, we did it at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night at exactly the same time as the Champions League final. I mean, idiotic, because Skids fans are essentially football fans, so you've got to watch some fat old 60-year-olds from Fife or the mighty Bayern Munich versus Saudi PSG, I mean, I guess you were going to watch the football.
Well, that's a tough choice.
We did okay, actually. We did pretty well, considering.
Are you a Celtic fan? Are you?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Need you ask?
Yeah. Well,
I'm civilized. I'm kind to other people. I'm not just homophobic nor racist, and I've got a progressive mind. And I was anti-Brexit. Who would that suggest I don't support?
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that one. Celtic, for what it's worth, Celtic always been my second club for some reason. And it seems to be an affinity between, historically, Tony might remember this actually, between Cardiff and Celtic fans. I don't know why. There's some sort of connection, I think. I don't see many.
I don't know about that one. Certainly in England, it's normally a bit of Arsenal, I think, because of the Irish connection, I think.
Yeah.
English clubs essentially always support Rangers because of Rangers fans all wave the Union Jack and God Save the Queen. And during when England are playing in various championships, Rangers fans wear England tops. It's amazing.
Wow.
That's because Celtic fans, they think we're Irish tops. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The hatred and loathing is off the scale stupidity.
I've never been to an Old Firm game, but it's kind of on my bucket list. Would you recommend it?
I don't think so. I really don't, because the level of hatred is so insane. I mean,
really?
Swansea versus Cardiff looked like, a kind of a nice little meeting at the United Nations, This is pure Balkan hatred, do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Serbia versus Bosnia, it's madness.
Okay. Well, I might give that a miss, but I'll keep a Celtic match on my list anyway.
Good.
Yeah. We wanted to take you back, Richard, to the kind of firstly, the early days of kind of getting the Skids together. What are your kind of early recollections about that?
Well, I was just leaving school. I was 15 and approaching my 16th birthday, and punk rock had happened in London. And the photographs. We didn't hear the music, but we heard about them obviously because of the noise it made, and then the photographs came out. And my older brother had already been letting me listen to bands like the Velvet Underground, MC5, Iggy Pop, obviously. So I was already listening to the forerunners of punk before British punk happened. So when it happened, it just made perfect sense to me as a young person living in a working class housing estate with not much of a future. I mean, the coal mines were closing. The dockyard wasn't really employing anybody. The only alternative employment was the British Army, and I wasn't going to do that, although some of my friends did. And I looked like a punk, and this guy called Stuart Adamson, who was thinking about starting a band, saw me at a Doctors of Madness gig in our hometown of Dunfermline, and I was the only punk in the audience, and he said, "Do you want to audition for our band?" And I said, "Sure." So I went along, and there was all these other guys there who were dressed like Brian Ferry, you know, with that nice hairdo, and they were essentially hairdressers, a lot of them.
Mm.
And I came and arrived as I was a punk, if you know what I mean. I was a feral, quite aggressive young guy, and I was perfect for that type of band at that time, you know. But obviously I love music, so you know, I wanted the lyrics to be quite sophisticated if I could do that, rather than the usual social realism about, you know, kind of our lives are shit. I wanted it to be a bit more exciting than that. So, you know, my lyrics have always been controversial, shall we say, in that people think they're a little bit too abstract, if not pretentious. I disagree with all of that, of course, and think I just try to do my own thing.
So I'm going to hand you over to Tony in a second, because Tony's a pretty big Skids fan, actually, and also he took some really fantastic pictures of you at a gig you played in Cardiff a while back, which he's probably going to share in a bit, if that's okay with you.
Early days or from recently?
No, recently.
The Tram Shed.
Yeah.
Tram Shed or something it was called?
Tram Shed, about 2 years ago.
I loved it. It was the first time I'd played in Wales since 1980, I think. And I loved it. Because we used to record in Wales. Did you know that? We recorded Days in Europa at Rockfield Studios.
Rockfield.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And we rehearsed and prepared most of the Absolute Game in Rockfield. And then there was a free album with the Absolute Game, and we recorded all of that in Rockfield. We used to love going there. I don't know if the good people of Monmouth appreciated us. We're big old Welsh farmer boys down there.
Yeah. And, Kingsley.
Not to be messed with. They were big old kind of rugby players, and they thought we were a bunch of Scottish pansies.
Did you see the documentary about Rockfield, Richard?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard really good things about it.
I think you probably love it, actually.
Yeah, because when we were rehearsing for Absolute Game, Simple Minds were up the road, and they were recording, I think, maybe their first or maybe their second album, I can't remember. And we did a midnight raid on them, and broke into Rockfield and stole everything.
Brilliant.
They were into blind panic because everything had gone. And they came down to borrow some of our equipment, and of course they found everything down the road, because we were they had this amazing rehearsal space just down the road from the studios. So it was a great vibe down there. I really loved it.
I mean, what you're talking about there, you know, obviously it's kind of fun, but there's a little bit of a kind of punk ethic in that as well. But I've never actually seen the Skids myself. I don't look at the Skids and think that's a punk band, you know. I thought it was kind of more than that, you know.
Well, I guess so, because Stuart Adamson was such an accomplished guitar player, and he'd also created his own sound very quickly. So we were never Clash copyists or Ramones copyists. You know, I think we were always a little bit more interesting than that. Gary Bushell once called us from, I think he wrote for Sounds at the time, the Thinking Man's Oi Band.
Nice.
It became one of those burdens around our neck, because the Skids, you know, we had quite nice audiences who were quite intelligent coming to see us, but we also had a lot of morons coming to us, a lot of skinheads and stuff. And when we released Days in Europa, a lot of far-right types came, and obviously I'm very anti all of that. So it was problematic, you know, but I think it was problematic for every band during that period, you know, the crossover between what was regarded as punk rock and the next wave. And we were essentially regarded as part of the next wave, although we were there right from the beginning. I mean, I remember being voted in the NME as Scotland's best punk band, and I was very proudly told my mum that, because she was a bit ashamed of me being this punk rocker. And I said, look, I've been voted Scotland's best punk band. She said, that's great, but you're the Scotland's only punk band. which was absolutely true. There weren't no other bands, you know, just us.
Yeah.
And, which was good news in the sense that when most of the bands came up from England, we got to support them, even the bands from America, you know. So we supported the Clash, we supported the Buzzcocks right at the very beginning, even bands like Television and Blondie we supported, and we supported lots of bands that we didn't really even like, but we just did it, you know, just to get more experience. So it was a great way of kind of creating a relationship with an audience. And also, you know, as I say, I was quite feral as a kid and quite fearless, because when you're 16 and a singer in a band, you know, we weren't exactly a boy band, you know, it was more like a gang. And it was just, it gave you a kind of incredible confidence, you know, to go on stage. I've never understood shy singers, you know, I never really get that shoegazing thing. It's never been me, you know, I like diving around. Some people call it dancing. I wouldn't dare to call it that, but you know, I just love the energy of it. And also I love communicating with the audience, you know, telling stories or trying to communicate in a way that they would understand, because a lot of the people I was talking to were the same age as I was, you know. I mean, when I met the guys from the Clash, they were already in their 20s or their mid-20s. I was 16, you know, I was really a genuine kid. And really, in the early days of punk, there weren't that many people my age who were in punk bands. There was a band from London called Eater, and they were all about the same age as me. But essentially, they were all, the guys in the Stranglers were much, much older, you know, and a lot of the other bands, even the Buzzcocks, they looked young, but they were much older.
Tony wants to talk to you about some of that stuff. I don't know, but do you want to show one of your pictures, Tony?
Yeah,
well, you showed me earlier, the promo photo, maybe.
This is the fanboy bit. It's something I've dug out of the archives. I don't know if you can quite see.
Look at that.
That's a Virgin promotional photograph.
Right.
That must have been around about 1980 or something like that. But
no, before then, that's 79.
79, yeah. But I mean, one of the things that I wanted to mention there is the clothes. You know, I mean, the clothes were so different to really what was going on in punk at the time. You know, there was all bondage and safety pins.
Well, that was the part, wasn't it, Tony?
Yeah.
And also, as we were saying a moment ago, I think we knew we needed to move on, you know, and try and move the music on. And so when we got to Rockfield to work with Bill Nelson as our producer, when we got to Wales to work, we had already decided that we needed to move the sound on, you know, to a new dimension. And I think subconsciously we knew we wanted to change the way we looked as well, you know, just make it a little bit more different. So we adopted this kind of look, which actually some of it is utterly ridiculous. But I mean, but isn't that the beauty of being young, you know? It wasn't ridiculous at the time. It was really cool. But now you see it, you go, oh my God, I better hide those photographs from my kids.
Well, it's a big impression to me. I think I saw you 3 times over that period in the Cardiff Top Rank, which isn't there anymore. But I mean, I went along, I suppose I was about 17, 18. And then, you know, there was this band that appeared on stage, which were full of energy. There's you dancing. The lyrics so different to the lyrics I've been listening to. Stuart Adamson was a massive influence on me guitar-wise, as you'd already said, very proficient. And just the energy coming off the band and the colourful clothes you were wearing, just the whole thing, anthemic songs, you know. It was so different to a lot of the stuff that I was, you know, maybe The Clash and other bands that I was listening to at the time.
Well, The Clash had an incredible energy live. They were amazing and obviously very political. The Stranglers, you know, who weren't really a punk band, but they behaved like punks, had a kind of edge and a mystery and to them that I loved. But we decided just to cut our own furrow, really, and the energy of the songs was really what drove me into just going with it each night. And I loved that part of it. You know, I couldn't really wait to get on stage. And I've met a lot of people from bands from that era and later who actually are sick before they go on stage because they're so nervous. And I often go and see bands, you know, still even bands from our era, and the singers don't communicate with the audience, which really leaves me a little bit dumbfounded, because to me that's the whole point of being there, you know, to communicate, bring this energy and joy to the table. And so I loved that. I mean, it used to be magic to be flying through the air, and then in the opposite direction, Stuart Adamson was flying through the air, you know. It was just so great. And I think we were undeniable live. I'm not sure that everybody likes the music or recordings, but certainly live. And I think, weirdly enough, even at my age now, until this dreadful pandemic affected live performances and people's lives, more importantly, we actually still had that energy. We brought it back, you know, and I've got myself nice and fit and strong and on stage for an hour and a half, and I actually felt pretty much like I did when I was 16 and 17 when you came to see us.
It's funny you should say that, because we were having a brief conversation before we managed to talk to you now, and we were talking about the photographs I took at the Tram Shed at the gig you did, and Steve said, you know, what was it like? And I said, well, it was great, because so often when bands reform or later on you see bands, and it's kind of like, oh well, it spoils the memory of what the band was like. But what I liked about yourselves was that energy. You still had that energy, that enthusiasm, that interaction with the crowd, you know, even after all those years. It was great to see.
Oh, it was great. I mean, that was great. That whole tour was just amazing fun, you know. And like I say, it was never cynical. It was never about money, because we never really made that much money from it. That was never the point. You know, we just went out because we wanted to give the songs another blast. And then, of course, we recorded another album, which gave us a kind of sense that we were at least trying to be relevant, rather than just part of the heritage trail and the nostalgia trail, which of course we are part of, but I wanted it to be a little bit more than that. So we were arrogant enough to try and do a new album, which I think worked really well for us. So that really helped, you know, doing all the songs that you would have wanted to hear if you came along to that gig, but then we threw in maybe 3 or 4 new ones that you would, unless you'd heard the album, you would never have heard. So that made it a bit more exciting for me. But beyond that, just the energy level was really high. And also the desire to find a way to communicate, taking the piss out of myself, obviously, and the band, and the audience. I love taking the piss out of the audience, you know. And then I think in Cardiff, I offered the whole audience out for a fight in the car park. Which would probably be a very bad idea with you know.
Maybe not such a good idea.
But it was a laugh, you know, and people understand I'm only joking, and it's great fun. And like I want to see lots of other bands who came from that time, who have reformed, and people who came after us. And I don't really get a good vibe when I go and see them. I get the feeling, I'm not going to name any names, but I think you probably know who I'm talking about. I just think it's a money-making exercise. It's not really about the joy of the songs, the desire to meet people. For example, we played Brighton on a few nights after Cardiff, and I don't know if you remember, we definitely did it in Cardiff. We had a thing called Skids for Kids. And when we were on tour with Absolute Game, when we were coming to play in Cardiff, we'd find a school in advance, speak to the headmaster and say, "We are the Skids. We were on Top of the Pops last night, and we would like to come and play in the schoolyard at lunchtime, do 5 songs in the back of a lorry." And the teacher was like, "As long as you don't swear, hallelujah, let's do it."
Yeah.
So we would pop up at a school without the kids knowing, on the back of a lorry. A lot of the kids would recognize us from Top of the Pops and do these songs. It was absolutely an amazing thing. And the reason I wanted to do that is because when I first started with the Skids, most of the venues that I played in, Tony, I wasn't actually legally allowed to go in because I was so young.
No.
So I did something right very early on, that we used to do a matinee in the afternoon in the venue with the bar closed, and then come back and do the gig in the evening, you know, like at the Sheffield City Limit Club or whatever. And the other members of the band hated that, because that was doing 2 gigs a day, you know, and it was knackering for them. But I loved it. And then when we got so, you know, much bigger, you know, we're playing big venues, we couldn't really do that. So we decided to get in the back of a lorry, and we did it all over the UK, man. It was great fun. And a lot of these people, that was the first time they ever saw a band live. They'd be like 14 or something. And the Skids were the first band I saw. And what the great thing about that tour we were just talking about, when I came to Cardiff and one particular evening in Brighton, a lot of those people have been coming to see us, because we split up not long after that. So they never got to see us live. So this was their first opportunity to see us live. And the nicest thing they said is we certainly didn't disappoint them. But the thing that I loved about it was hanging out with them afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like they were fawning. They were just kind of very interested in, you know, my story. But I was more interested in their story and what happened to them, and, you know, how their lives had been shaped. So it was great to hear. I mean, listen, all the stories weren't happy stories. Some of them were very sad. I mean, some of these guys had a lot of personal problems, you know, with drugs and alcohol, or, you know, failed marriages or stuff like that, you know, lots of social problems. But a lot of them had done really well. So, and Brighton, the whole class came to the gig.
Brilliant.
20 of them.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. So they all, some of them lived in Australia and far away, and they all got back together. and got tickets for the gig and came to see us. So that was just magic.
Fantastic.
Magic,
Yeah, brilliant.
magic. And to hear their story. So, you know, I went for a wander along the pier and had some fish and chips with them and stuff afterwards. And they were amazed by that, going, well, you know, you're Jobbo. And I was going like, come on, man, I'm the same age as, I'm a little bit older than you guys. And come on, who gives a shit about the Skids apart from us? Do you know what I mean? So let's calm down with all that kind of thing. I don't give a monkeys about any of that. And it was just great. It was a great thing. But, you know, so these things come full circle again, all these little things you do that actually meant something to me at the time. But it meant a lot to those kids who stood in the playground watching the guys they'd seen on that very influential show at the time, you know, Top of the Pops, the night before. And there they were in their schoolyard, battering it out and diving about for them. It was great fun.
Yeah, I think the DIY punk thing, you know, from people of our age, it's sort of stuck with me all my life. You know that, you know, you've got to get up, you've got to do it yourself. And we're probably from similar areas in terms of the demographic. I mean, we've got a lot of coal mines in Wales. Obviously, there was a lot of unemployment. There was, I mean, I left school in the middle of Thatcherism just started, and unemployed straight away. There's nothing to do. No, you know. So I think that punk thing gave you belief in yourself and that confidence in yourself. It was great.
That's right, absolutely, 100%. And I think nowadays, the bands that I'm, you know, I still like to go and see bands, but a lot of them are quite posh, you know, and they're being funded from the bank of mum and dad, you know, and it's a different thing altogether. I think where you and I came from, our backgrounds, it would be very, very hard to be in a band today from that background, if not impossible.
Very true. Yeah.
Because how do you make a living from it? Do you know what I mean? It's just not possible to do that. And the cost of playing small venues and hiring the van, putting your gear in it, you know, it's just too difficult, you know. And you need incredible amounts of self-belief. But most importantly, there's no two ways about it. You need luck, you know. And
definitely
lucky. We came along at the right time. All the component parts just worked, clicked, you know. Those bands needed a front man. Those bands needed a great guitar player. And those bands needed an incredible drummer. You know, these were the three essential ingredients. I've never really understood the bass player part, Tony, but the rest of it.
I'll tell my friend Tony that, actually, who's in a band with me. You love that one. Yeah.
I think we were lucky. We were just doing the right thing at the right time, and I think the moment we did Into the Valley on Top of the Pops, the next day our lives were changed, you know, because it was a full-on performance. And I remember we flew back to Scotland the next day from London, and we got to our rehearsal space, which was a little garage, you know, just next to a high school, and there was like 500 kids all hanging around the garage because of the performance the previous night, you know, and people were shouting at us as we walked down the road after the rehearsal. Not always nice things, I might add, but screaming at us anyway. And your life had changed, you know, and something you had done had connected with people in a much wider way. And suddenly young kids in Wales, North and South Wales, and Liverpool and Manchester and Newcastle and Leeds suddenly got a chance to get a real feel for what you were doing. And it just worked because, as I say, we went from playing relatively small clubs to playing pretty big venues. I mean, the last gig we ever played before we split up was Hammersmith Odeon, I think, you know, so it was
pretty big.
It was pretty big, and it was sold out, and it's, you know, we associate Hammersmith Odeon with David Bowie. We don't associate with a bunch of little shits from Scotland, you know. So it was an amazing evening, and also we split at when Stuart left when we were at our peak, which is a shame. You know, he went on to do his own thing with Big Country, and I understand why he did that, but and Big Country's music was very commercial, but it didn't have the edge that the Skids had, you know. And I think it was more his thing. It was more romantic, and maybe there was a kind of more obvious social commentary in their music, and it was very Scottish, you know, that kind of indigenous thing was going on there, which, I mean, I like folk music, but I didn't really want us to be a Scottish electric folk band, you know. I wanted us to be always have an edge, and I think we've still got an edge even now at our age. and it's sad. I mean, it's sad what's happened at the moment, because I was so looking forward to the tour this year, because we were doing a lot of new stuff, and we also got into the habit since the last couple of gigs of doing a medley of other people's songs. I really love doing it. So we had prepared a lot of stuff, like crazy stuff to do as encores and stuff. But anyway, there you go. Such is life.
Mm. Well, just to finish the fan bit, because I know Steve's got lots of questions.
No, that's all right. No, bring some pictures in, Tom, as well.
We got went through the old vinyl, so we've got Scared to Dance, Days in Europa, all of this. But that wasn't really what I was going to say, that I've bought the vinyl, so I'm a fan. But it was quite funny, because I found this one, and I've got that thing that people do. I've kept it in the cellophane, which is really sad. But it says special offer on it, $3.99 as well. So I even left the label on there. But I think
there's versions of Days in Europa. Yeah, I mean, there's a kind of mythic controversy around the album that we had to change the sleeve. That's not the case. It's because there's two different mixes. Virgin Records, our record label, didn't like the mix that Bill Nelson did, and they got somebody else to come and remix it. And we said, well, you can do that, but we want to make both of the albums available. So they were always available.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with this kind of bullshit about it being a controversial sleeve. It wasn't controversial in any way whatsoever. It was because there's two mixes. The album that you kept in the plastic, keep it in the plastic.
Yeah.
Because the other one's a better mix.
Yeah, there was a lot of press about I think some of the images and stuff at the time. But also we've got the Absolute Game, which of course is coming up to 40 years. And as you mentioned, it's got the extra album in there as well.
Yeah.
So
we recorded all of the album in 2 days in Rockfield's rehearsal space.
2 days, which you wouldn't get it now, would you? 2 days, no way.
So we had 2 days, and we recorded it and mixed it in 2 days. It was amazing. It's hilarious. Virgin thought we were going to record all these new songs, because Absolute Game had been finished way before that, and we gave them all these instrumentals and strange abstract songs. But anyway, it worked. People still love that album.
Yeah, definitely.
And the 40th anniversary, I think, is a week tomorrow. I think that's right.
Yes,
yeah,
it is. We were going to go out this year and play a lot of the songs from that album, but we can't do it. But what I think we're talking about doing is, we did, like I spoke to you earlier, I said we played a internet gig the other night, and it really worked. It was great fun, and we did an hour and 3/4, and it just flew by. So we're thinking about doing the whole of the Absolute Game acoustically, if we can.
Wow.
So that, I'll keep you in touch with that, see what happens.
Yeah, sounds really, really good.
What's it like for you, Richard, playing a live stream gig as an experience? The whole band get together, you sort of socially distance in? How does it work?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're abiding, we're who knows who's vulnerable to this, you know what I mean? So
exactly.
You're incredibly careful. So we did all of that. But we each had an individual camera on us, so we never had to kind of get that close. But I thought it would be difficult because of, as I say, like to communicate. But actually, I found it easy. I was just telling stories and having a laugh, really, and being serious when I needed to be serious. So there's no doubt in my mind that it worked. It really, really worked. It was, and I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think I would enjoy it, but I really did enjoy it, in the sense that it was a new experience. I was very skeptical, and I came out the other end of it feeling really good. So I'm going to do it again. As I say, we're in conversation about doing another gig very, very soon, and it's going to be the whole of the Absolute Game acoustically. If it can be done, I'm not sure it can be done, but we're going to give it a go.
If you can notice in Tony's background now, some of the shots he took of at the gig at the Tramp Shake, he was in the pit for a while.
Was he?
Yeah. So some nice shots coming up there.
Somebody gobbed on me in Cardiff. I bet it was
oh dear.
It wasn't me.
Okay. The only gig on the whole tour, because normally, like when we first got back together, we played I think it was Newcastle, and it was a big gig, and I bet it was packed, sold out, and that was the first time we ventured into England to see if it would work in England rather than just in Scotland. And the promoter came to me afterwards and said, "Listen, man, this is like a Bay City Rollers gig." I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "There's like 500 people at the stage door waiting to meet you." I said, "You're joking." He said, "I'm not joking. You want to see it? It's like, you've got to go out there or they're going to have to call the police." And I went, "Are you taking the piss out of me, mate?" And he went, "No, I'm serious. Go and have a look." I said, "How many of them are women?" He went, "None." 500 big sweaty Geordies. So when we played Cardiff, I noticed that it was probably the only gig apart from Dublin where the Skids attracted, some attractive Welsh lassies. So there you go. Got a female following in Wales.
Yeah, apparently,
listening.
The ratio of good-looking females in Cardiff and South Wales is apparently quite high. It's never done me any favours, but apparently it is. Who knows?
No, they're very bold.
Talking about women, my wife came to see you when you played in Oxford fairly recently. I'm not sure whether would this have been an acoustic tour, maybe, or with the band. I think it was with the band, actually.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember. We certainly played electrically in Oxford.
Was it the first gig of the tour? Am I right in thinking that, maybe?
It may well have been, yes.
Yeah. But what she said was really nice, because my wife is absolutely obsessed by music. She just lives for music, and she, without embarrassing you, but I doubt it does, but she just absolutely totally loved your performance. And what really resonated with
very much.
What really resonated with her was what appeared to be just an absolute joy to be on that stage and to share what you do with an audience,
Yeah, well, I think that's absolutely it. There's nothing more to it. There's no, kind of magic bullet here. There's no alchemy. It's just really a kind of love of being able to relive the songs, and do them justice. I think we're actually playing the songs better now than we ever did because we've got two guitars. The Skids always needed two guitars, and I used to play rhythm guitar towards the end, which I hated doing. I really hated it. Although I could do it, obviously, because I did. I didn't like it because I just felt it stopped me being free on the stage, So with the two guitars now and some keyboards, it's just been great. So I'm free, and I take the piss out of the way I move on stage myself, and it's ridiculous. A man of my age bouncing around trying to do backflips, but it's just great. Because I think the music just grabs me and I go with it, There's not been one gig since we got back together that I've not done that every night. I just do it. Even when I've not felt 100% or whatever, I just get on stage and get on with it because, the adrenaline kicks in and it's just a magic experience. But anyway, thank her very much for that because she's right. It's a very joyful experience and it's a really great thing to know that that's communicating with people.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for that. She'll love that, by the way. I'll tell her later. But I noticed some of the bands that you said where you kind of really enjoyed, and you mentioned the Alex Harvey band, of course, and as a kind of a fellow countryman and Glaswegian, Alex, what made Alex Harvey such a great performer? What made the band work for you?
Well, I think Alex is, apart from Iggy Pop, probably the best frontman I ever saw. And I liked his mixture of he was very self-deprecatory, he really took the piss out of himself. But at the same time, there was a toughness there, and he also, a lot of the characters in the songs were like what we now call graphic novels, but they were more comic book, kind of almost like he was the bad guy from a Marvel comic rather than the good guy, So I loved all that. I loved the mythical gangs like Vambo, and to be honest, I never really was sold on the music. The music was a little bit could be a little bit too heavy for me or a bit progressive, in rock terms on occasion. But Alex is a frontman. Apart from Iggy Pop, I've never seen anything like it. So that was an inspiration to me, and it was the ability to move from a snarling aggression into, something that was very, very funny. And he did that with great dignity. I mean, the first time I saw him, he played he was supporting Mott the Hoople, and he smashed a big hole in the stage in Edinburgh. And Mott the Hoople had to come on in their big platform boots and their big funny hairdos and walk around this big hole that Alex had smashed in the stage during Vambo.
Yeah.
And it was just hilarious because me and my friend, this guy called Budgie, we had gone along to see Alex. We weren't in the slightest bit interested in Mott the Hoople, although Mott the Hoople had some really good songs. We were there for Alex, you know, and I remained a fan. I mean, I met him just before he died, and it was a great honor to meet him. He was a great guy. I mean, obviously he was old school in the terms of drinking alcohol, and I don't know about drugs, but he certainly drank a lot, you know. And and old school Glaswegian. I'm from the East. I'm actually not from Glasgow, so they're just made of tougher stuff. Do you know what I mean? They're really tough city, and he was proper Glaswegian.
Well, just to say a couple of quick things on this, because we're talking about you, but you know, it's also about your love of music. When I was in school, I'm just a little bit older than you, about 9-10 months older than you. And I know you got a bit significant birthday coming up quite soon. I had mine in January. Yeah. So in school, I remember across the wall of our school, across the gym, Vambo Rules OK and Star, we were just everywhere. We just painted everywhere, all over the school. And then later on, I got to see Alex play a couple of gigs. And at the time, if you remember, he had an all-Welsh backing band. Towards the end, had a bunch of guys from Wales playing with him. And a mate of mine thought he knew the drummer, Colin Jock Griffin, I think it was. So we managed to go and see a gig. And I saw him in the space of a couple of weeks, Richard. It was quite interesting and also sad. One of the gigs, I can't remember which way around it was. One of the gigs, Alex came on stage. He was the consummate performer, fantastic gig, mesmerizing, unbelievable performer. Another gig, I was waiting and we were trying to get in on the door, and a gentleman was dragged past us with his feet on the ground by a man either side and taken through the door, and that was Alex. And then the gig started, and he came on, kind of collapsed over the monitors. The curtains came across, and then when he went back, Jack Bass was singing. And Jack Bass recently passed away as well, actually.
Was that because he was drunk?
Yeah, off his head.
That's sad to hear.
So
it's amazing,
sad.
Really, even my contemporaries, the people that I played with, like Stuart Adamson, you know, he died a very sad death from alcohol abuse that led him to take his own life. John McGeoch, who had my second band with the Armory show, same thing, you know, died of his body just gave in because of the amount of abuse he gave it through drinking drugs. I never believed the myth, you know, I never believed the myth that you needed to be wasted to go on and perform. And you couldn't do what I do if you were wasted. It'd be impossible because you need to be fit and strong and to survive 90 minutes of that kind of hard physical graft on stage, you know. And so I never bought into the myth. The myth to me was always idiotic, and I knew that from an early age. It was idiotic. So it was never the thing that I was looking for. But the performance was my drug, you know, the performance thing, and still is. You know, it's been reborn, you know, and that was what I needed. I didn't need any help to get to that, because the idea of just getting on that stage in front of people was enough. But it's sad, though, you know. I mean, Alex, as you say, you know, was a massive influence on many people, and he was underrated. When people talk about great performers, you never hear his name being mentioned. It's always the same thing: David Bowie, Iggy Pop. You know, you think, you know, wait a minute, what about Alex Harvey? You know, he's right up there. And totally. I think the people that know. Do you know what I mean? It's sometimes journalists they get caught in what's hip, and do you know what I mean? And you suddenly go. I mean, I've heard people say that Tom York from Radiohead's the greatest performer they've ever seen. I'm going like, what do you mean, performer? You know, he's like, I mean, I know he's in the songs. I get that. I mean, I know he performs the songs, but he himself is not a performer, is he? I mean, he's kind of he's much more of a guy who's a bit of he's in that kind of shoegazing domain, you know, and there's an otherworldliness about it, but he ain't a communicator, is he?
No, and it's interesting with you and your kind of like Tony alluded to earlier, you know, the kind of lyrical content of the stuff that you write about. If you think about Alex Harvey, and you've identified it there, it's very cartoon-like. It's full of this imagery, you know, the strappy shirt and the characters and you know, even framed, you know, written in the context of a kind of a mythical kind of a military experience, actually. And of course, the stuff that you write about is very kind of literary. The stuff that you do is not, it's not the normal, it's not the bog standard stuff, you know. It's important, it's so important to you what you write about lyrically, isn't it?
Scared to Dance, the debut Skids album, was produced by David Batchelor, who was the Alex Harvey producer.
Wow. Okay.
And he was Ear Gas, Alex's first band. David was in that band and also the producer of that band. So we've got a long connection with Alex. I mean, Into the Valley was produced and arranged by David Batchelor, and you know, he knew about my love of Alex, so he kind of gave me room to maneuver in the songs and make them a little bit more arty, for want of a better term, in places. But certainly in lyrical terms, I was a voracious reader, and Scared to Dance had quotes on the back of it by Jean-Paul Sartre. You know, and that's not the kind of thing you're meant to do if you come from a housing estate in a part of Scotland. You know what I mean? That's for the kind of educated metropolitan people, not for, you know, us backward sons of miners. So I didn't really care about that. I've never really cared what people's impression of what I was doing was. I mean, recently I was asked to go on a BBC One show, and they were doing a piece on songs that nobody really understood the lyrics to, and they wanted to take the piss out of Into the Valley alongside other songs, and they said, "Would you come on?" I said, "No," and they went, "Why not? This is a big show. You know, millions and millions of people watch it. It's like the biggest show on the BBC." And I went, "No, I'm not coming on your show to laugh at my own song." And the lyrics of Into the Valley are about my mates who couldn't get a job and ended up in Northern Ireland because they joined the British Army. You know, I'm not going to come on and laugh at them. I said, "You can do what you want. I can't stop you, and I won't be watching your program anyway. But so it's irrelevant to me." And then the producer phoned back and said, "I hear you don't want to come on our show." And I went, "Yeah, why are you calling me? I've already told you I don't want to come on your program. I'm not interested." But the presenter has personally asked for you to come on. I said, "Well, tell the presenter to fuck off. I don't care. I don't care about your program, and I'm not going to come on and mock my own song, you know." Well, I haven't been a little bit, you know, pompous about it. I said, "If I was in a room with you just now, mate, you'd be lying on your back because I'd have knocked you out right now. So go on, piss off, and don't call me again." It's just this idea they have that because it's the media, that anybody will be willing to do anything, which is fortunately the case these days, that people are willing to humiliate themselves to have a little bit of a profile. But I was very protective of those words because they mean a lot to me, and I know in some people's eyes they're abstract, but I released a little book actually to coincide with the last tour called No Bad Words. And what I do, I put all the lyrics of all my songs in there, and I've done little breakdowns of what I was on about, you know. And it's a lovely, beautiful little book done by this little independent publisher who does really great stuff with Jason from Sleaford Mods and the people from Crass. You know, he's really a great pop culture publisher, and he does things very beautifully. It's called Bracket Press, and they did a lovely book, and so I was allowed to really just say, this is what I was thinking about when I was writing Masquerade, or this was what was in my mind when I was working for the Yankee Dollar or whatever, you know. So it was a good opportunity to just put some of these things to rest. But, you know, I mean, everybody's allowed their opinion. I don't have a problem with that. I don't even have a problem with the people on that particular BBC One show, called The One Show, taking the piss out of my song. I don't care, but I'm not going to join them, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Well, I totally respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Tony and I, you know, because we said earlier, we both grew up in different parts of Cardiff, you know, and neither of us are kind of posh boys, you know. And I suppose we're both working class, really. I mean, that's what we are. And just a very quick story, Richard. I went to an event with a professor, right, at some really nice kind of building in the middle of nowhere for a weekend conference, and I felt like a fish out of water, to be honest with you. I mean, I work in a university, but I just felt totally out of it. And and he jokingly said, his name's Hamish Fife, by the way, a nice Scottish name. And he said, "Oh, thank you for coming to my house." And he was just joking. And I just said, "Oh, I don't know what a working class chap like me is kind of doing." He said, "Listen to me. Never be anything but proud of being working class, you know." And it's this kind of association, like you said, between, intelligentsia. Well, that should be the posh boys, and why, you know?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that is completely correct what you're saying, but at the same time, that cultural snobbery is. I mean, if you look at, you listen to people on the BBC, BBC Radio 4, and the way they talk about culture, it's only because recently, through Black Lives Matter, that they've started to look at young black writers and young people who are, or even older black writers. But it's almost, if you're a kind of in this current era we live in, if you're a white working class writer, there's no way through. You've got to find your own way through, because you're never going to get appreciated on those kind of programs, because their attitude to you is like, you don't really deserve to be here, because it's a kind of closed shop. It's a cabal. Yeah, doing the gigs has given me an opportunity to, because I've written, some novels now, and it gives me an opportunity to get them out there. And it's an amazing way of marketing my books. I don't force them down people's throat. They're beautiful looking books, and they're very, very inexpensive. And I tell people about them. It's up to them if you want to buy it or not, but it's a great way of doing it, and people do buy them, and it's great, and the response is great. I get to talk to people about it. So I found a way of getting my books out there that I might not have done otherwise, with the help of, the kind of people that do these culture shows, because it's just the same people that are on those shows all the time. If there's a discussion about, it's almost a joke. You can have who they're going to have on before they even do it. You go, if they're going to be talking about working class writers in Britain today, they'll have one like A.L. Kennedy. You go like, what's she got to do with this? Do you know what I mean? She doesn't understand what it's like. Why don't you have John Cooper Clarke or someone on like that? Who actually has lived it, who knows it, who is it, and actually he's a bit of a genius. I still love John deeply, and love his work, and I still think there's a majesty to what he does that has never been. That people from that other walk of life wouldn't have a clue what to deal and what to do with somebody like John Cooper Clarke. It's almost patronizing the way they deal with their idea. Is more like someone like Nick Cave, because he's got a kind of mystery to him. In my new book that I've just finished, there's a whole section that's set in Berlin, and it's called "Fuck Nick Cave." One section of it, and it's really because we take our cultural norms from what other people are telling us to do, rather than going out and finding it. When you were young, you went out and found the music. No one was telling you what to buy. No, there was no social media saying this is what you need to do. You have to do this. You went out. It was word of mouth. Your mate may have had something. You would have heard it around his house or her house. You'd have gone, I don't really like that. Or you heard something else, you go, I love that. And then off you went, or you did that for somebody else. And that's the way our generation communicated. And in many ways, it was much better, because you made your own mind up. It wasn't, your mind wasn't being made up for you. And that's what worries me sometimes, because, I read a lot of contemporary things that I watched a movie the other night that got 5 stars out of 5 in The Guardian. And I watched it, and after 15 minutes, I knew I hated the film. I absolutely hated it. It was boring, badly done, dreary, morose, everything that I just loathed it. And you go, how did you get 5 stars out of 5 stars? I'm not a stupid person. I mean, I'm trying to work out how this happened, but I couldn't do it.
So talking about not being a stupid person, which you're clearly not, of course, is you actually got an honorary doctorate from Edinburgh in university. How was that an experience for you?
I'm not sure what I think about that. I mean, it was kind of fun, and it was a fun day out. I've never ever used it, so I've never ever, signed off a letter, Dr. Jobson.
Sounds good.
It's ridiculous, but it was a nice thing, and it was just a nice day out. I'm not sure what I think about that kind of thing.
Did you have to sort of create a speech for that, though? Did you?
I did, yes. but I was my speech was really about achievement, about how you coming from where I came from, where you guys are from.
Yeah.
No one was ever going, listen, here it is. Here's the roots. You have to make your own way in life. And, you know, you get a little bit lucky sometimes, but you also get a bit unlucky sometimes. You know, I've been as unlucky as I've been lucky, but I've kept going. I've never given up. And even, you know, today, before I was chatting to you guys, I've been working on a new book and writing. And then we're working on a new Skids album. We're doing a covers album, actually, at the moment.
Great.
So I was learning
Brilliant.
some of the songs.
Yeah.
I mean, a real lovely mixture of stuff. Like I was learning Complete Control by The Clash, and then I was learning The Light Pours Out of Me by Magazine. And these are an example of the kind of songs we're doing. You know, Young Savage by Ultravox. Not what you would expect, I don't think. It's going to be a really nice mixture of different things. So that's the next project. So I've been working on that as well as writing. Got up early. And as soon as I finish with you guys, I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee and a bit of breakfast.
Okay. So we won't keep you too long, but fascinating talking to you. Great, really. I didn't know as much about you by any means at all as Tony does, and it's just really interesting.
I don't think we've even touched on the film side of things yet, but obviously we don't want to keep you from your coffee, but
well, let's do another one. I've really enjoyed you guys.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic if we could do another one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bowie and all kinds of stuff. It's just so much stuff.
My first novel, The Speed of Life, is about two aliens who come to Earth to find David Bowie.
Yeah.
How on earth did you come up with that idea?
Well, I'm a Bowie fanatic, and I wanted to. It was a love letter to Bowie, really. I just wanted to write something that was, and he knew about it because my old manager is a guy called Ian Grant, and his partner was Alan Edwards, who also managed us and the Stranglers. And Alan has been David Bowie's PR right up until the day David died. So I had a direct contact with Bowie, and so I told him I was writing this book about two aliens coming to Earth who were these very beautiful, elegant, identical, non-gender specific aliens, because in their planet they heard a song by Bowie and they went, what the hell was that? And it gave them a tingle that they'd never had before. So they decided to go and find out what that's all about. So they arrive on Earth looking for Bowie. So it's a really sweet story, you know. It's a kind of love letter to him, but done through the eyes of these two strange creatures. And he knew about it and was really keen to read it, but sadly he passed away before he could.
Did you get to meet him?
I never did, no. And it's strange. I've been in the same room as him many times, but I never had a chance to talk to him, unfortunately. Lou Reed I met because the Skids played his birthday party in New York, and that was a very interesting experience. David Bowie was actually at that party, but again, we were doing a gig. We were the house band that night. And yeah, I met some of the people that I've you know, I tell you who I met recently who I really like meeting, and on the subject of being, we're chatting to two fine Welshmen today, is James from Manic Street Preachers.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a fan of the band, you know. I think Motorcycle Emptiness would be in my top 20 of all time. I love that so much. Anyway, we were doing a gig and they were headlining. This was last year. And I heard him warming up. He does this kind of weird warming up thing. And I went, is that the guy from the Manics? And they said, yeah. So when he came out, I said, oh, hi. I don't want to take your time because I know you're going on soon, but I'm the guy from the Skids, Richard Jobson. He goes, no. I said, I know who you are. The Skids are one of my favorite bands of all time. I didn't know that the Skids were a big deal for James. So we sat down and talked, and he's a super intelligent guy. Very generous, you know, to me anyway, very kind in his compliments. And we got on like a house on fire, and I really, really loved meeting him. And so recently someone sent me a link. He did a thing on YouTube down during the lockdown of his top 10 songs, and one of them was a Skids song called A Woman in Winter, and he talked about the song in detail, what it meant to him. And I have a movie also called A Woman in Winter. And he talked about the movie. He'd seen the movie, so I was really quite taken aback but the respect is mutual. I'm a big fan of them, and I'm a big fan of him. And as I say, Motorcycle Emptiness is on. I play it certainly once a week, if not more than that.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that you connect with him sort of intellectually, really, because I mean, he's fantastically well read. He's very much a working class hero, really. It came from Blackwood in Wales. You know, it's not exactly New York. You know, I mean, I think the man couldn't have come from anywhere else, because part of what they're about. You know.
Yeah, I think that's really well put. I mean, I think that's the problem. You know, unless you come from, you know, the big city, people take you slightly less seriously. That happened at the Skids. The Skids were from a rural mining area, and you know, the people in Glasgow and Edinburgh were a bit snooty about us. But we used that to our advantage in many ways. But anyway, James was a great guy, and I had no idea he was such a the Skids had a big part in his early life when he was a kid. Yeah,
that's a really lovely story, actually, isn't it? It's nice, Tony, for Richard to meet James, and for them, you know, to have that connection.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to let you have a bacon sandwich now, Richard.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm feeling guilty about it now.
No worries. But I started the day very early today, so I'm. And apologies for technology not.
No, at all.
No problem.
That's where we're at. It's been fantastic to speak to you. Really.
Yeah. Well, let's do it again. You know, let's have part 2.
Great.
Talking movies and stuff in the books. I'd love
Maybe,
to do that.
yeah, well, either the book or the new album, whichever. You know, we'd love to do that.
Yeah, we'd love to do that.
Okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Look after yourself.
Okay. Take care now. Cheers.
Bye, Richard.